I almost don't even know how to start the show because we're live, and I didn't even expect that. It's pretty cool. I want to say hello to everybody who's watching, whoever that is. If you're catching this after the fact, hello to you too. We're just doing things live now. In the wise words of Bill O'Reilly.
Okay. O'Reilly's.
All right, listen, we can get banned on Twitch for that. You got to be careful.
Can't say fuck on Twitch.
Yeah. No. O'Reilly Auto Parts might come in DMCA. Yeah. That's a jingle. That's a song.
Probably off key.
Ooh, those algorithms are smart. Those piracy bots. Come on.
You know what, guys? I feel good this morning. I have a good energy about me. I feel like I want to smile and stuff. And it's because this week brought me a news item that reminds me of something that I didn't even realize. Which
Sean,
is that, yeah.
Would you say it's one of those gifts that are still under your tree that came finally this week?
Funny story about that. Not telling it.
Okay.
It's that sometimes this industry that we love to comment on can give you a gift that keeps on giving.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, that would happen to be Morbius, the movie. I love the fact that Morbius was delayed. It's funny. It's hilarious. Morbius was delayed yet again. Again, how could this be possible? Morbius was delayed to April 1st, 2022 from January 28th, 2022.
That sounds like a troll. April 1st, really?
Yeah. First of all, yeah. The last one I saw was February. It was delayed till February.
No,
no, you're right. It is April 1st. I remember reading that. But choosing that specific date is like,
It's a meme. Has to be.
Come on.
It's unbelievable. It really is. Like, you're going to put out a movie starring Jared Leto called Morbius that has been delayed an unbelievable amount of times. I can't wait to tell you guys how many times this movie has been delayed. But who the hell is looking for this movie? Who's looking for this movie?
Jared Leto is see if he can get that money from it.
What money?
Yeah.
What money?
If it's anything like Venom, this is going to sell out.
I feel like it's going to be more like a New Mutants where it eventually comes out.
Speaking of New Mutants, I have a question for you guys. And it's not random.
Okay, this is targeted.
Which movie was delayed more times? New Mutants or Morbius? Let's do it.
What?
I'm going to say Morbius. I feel like when New Mutants was delayed, it was delayed in bigger chunks, but Morbius has been delayed time after time. Is what I'm remembering.
I'm going to say New Mutants.
I'm also going to say New Mutants.
Okay. It's definitely Morbius.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. Yes. Morbius has been delayed more times than New Mutants. Morbius was originally scheduled to release July 10th, 2020.
Wow.
It got bumped to July 31st, 2020. Then it got bumped almost a whole year to March 19th, 2021. Then it got bumped again to October 8th, 2021. Then January 21, 2022. Then January 28, 2022. And now April 1st. That's 7 release dates.
Well, 8, because April 1st is obviously not happening.
That ain't happening. No. Not with that Omarion variant running amok. Who knows?
The what?
The Omarion.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
If that's a reference, I don't get it.
No, that's a thing. That's what they're calling this variant.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah,
well,
type go on Google.
Yeah,
use the Google machine
Google.
and type in Omarion variant.
Yeah, just search Omarion specifically.
Yeah, you don't even
Cal.
need to type in variants. Type in Omarion.
This is not an obvious cultural difference between the four of us. That is being evident.
I got American singer, songwriter, actor, and dancer.
Marco, you ruined it now. You ruined the bit.
Wait, you don't know who? Do you know who Omarion is?
No.
Oh my God.
So it is a reference, and we don't get it.
But it's not. He's a singer. He's been around forever. It's like, all right. I forget who I'm dealing with sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I know Omarion. He's got those dance moves that are like, are they good?
Mid. They're mid.
Yeah, they're mid.
What
Much
else
like
is
this
mid?
version of the
Morbius. Morbius is mid, and I haven't seen any of it. It just looks bad. The reason it was delayed is so Sony that I'm genuinely shocked. The reason they say it was delayed is because they don't want to rain on Spider-Man's parade. Okay, Sony. You think that Morbius
Coming out a month later.
Come out a month later and ruin what Spider-Man No Way Home has going on? That's what you think?
People are flocking.
That's what you think? With Omarion just dancing through everybody, just cutting through their bodies, you think Morbius is going to be the thing that does it?
I'm just picturing a little COVID virus ball just doing Omarion dance moves.
Yeah. This is unreal. I love Sony. Sony has been one of the lights of my life when it comes to memes for years. Between the Sony hacks, I love that they got hacked. That's one of my favorite things of all time. And this, it's just amazing. Like, thank you, Sony, for being so foolish that you make this podcast better. Thank you. That's all I wanted to do. Shout outs to you, Sony. Appreciate you.
Respect. Put respect on the name.
Yes, absolutely.
Until the next delay.
You should put respect on the name of Omarion. Jeez.
Yeah, Kale and Marco, what's wrong with you?
Bro, send me an album. I've never heard of this dude.
For real.
You never heard Icebox?
I have one.
You've heard Icebox.
Where your heart used to be, right, Kale?
Well, yeah, I mean, eventually you have to throw it away. It gets burned.
Come on, man. Never heard of Omarion. Listen, anyway, welcome to the show.
White.
This is episode 27. I noticed. This is episode 272 of the Comics Pals. We appreciate you guys joining us. We are actually currently live. No one knows that. We didn't promote it. We're just
testing. We're testing.
Testing, seeing how things work. It won't change anything for anybody who's listening after the fact. You will still get this in your feed. It's likely how you're hearing it. And yeah, we're just, having a little bit of fun, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. It's a new year, new pals. We have a lot of things we want to get into this week. We're going to be talking about the major rumors behind the Flashpoint film. Big exclusive deal made over on Image Comics, and a huge block of X-Men news that's going to resolve with a question, which is also not random. Was the great Jonathan Hickman X-Men experiment a success? So lots to talk about this week. I do want to make mention of a few things. So first of all, if you want to support the show, you can make the pals a part of your week, which so many of you have done already, which we're super thankful for. I want to make sure that you guys are aware of everything we have going on, both new and old. First thing I want to talk about is that I want you to subscribe. Go over on youtube.com/thecomicspals and subscribe to our channel. We are on the road to 500 subscribers. We need like 20 more, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So if you haven't, head on over there and do that. While you're thinking about us, go to podcast hosting platforms, subscribe to us. You can do that, follow us rather. You can do that on Spotify as well. You can leave us a rating over there. Do that wherever you listen to this podcast. Go over to twitch.tv/thecomicspals. If you're not live with us here now, head on over and just follow. It's free to do. We need a certain amount of followers to get to affiliate over there. So just head on over there and do that. It doesn't really change anything for you. If the live thing is not your bag for whatever reason, just never watch us live. Just head on over there. Do us a favor. Click that follow button. Also, Pals Pulls has changed. Pals Pulls is a segment we've had on this show almost since the beginning. It has grown up. It is now its own show that will drop every single Wednesday. We took our review show, we reworked it a little bit, and we now call it Pals Pulls. The actual Pals Pulls segment that you guys know and love is over there as well. So if you want our thoughts about books that are releasing next week, you got to watch Pals Pulls to find out what we're interested in. Also, if you write comments into the show that are about our weekly reviews, if your comments refer to stuff we talked about on the weekly reviews, we will now read them over there. So the comment section for this show will be based on comments that get made about stuff that happens anywhere other than our review show.
Yeah, if you're in the, I just want to say, if you're in the live chat, you can also comment on that. Yes. Right now it's just Matt, so I won't be reading those. But if you guys do want to watch us live, we can have some little interaction while we record. So
yeah, absolutely. Never before really have you guys been able to interact with us while we do a show. We've streamed before, games and things like that, but obviously that's a little different. You guys can be a part of the show live, which is super cool. I think Pals Pulls does go live every single Wednesday at 6. So tune in for that if you weren't unaware, and come hang out with us. We review comics. You can get your voices heard about books that we are reviewing. You don't have to wait a week to get them read on the air. So figure that's pretty cool for you guys. Also, want to talk about our book club. The first book club of this month is Saga, or rather of this year is Saga. We're finally doing Saga. We're doing the entire first chunk, so that's the first 54 issues, 55.
Correct. Yep.
54. So we'll be doing that.
Volumes.
Yeah,
that's right.
9 volumes.
One compendium.
Yes, we're gonna do that all in one shot for you guys. Hopefully, it is not our longest book club yet, but it might be. We'll see. We shall see. And you know what? On a subject of book clubs, we have so many that have released. Go ahead and check that out. Tons of book clubs that you might enjoy, and stay tuned for more announcements about how the book club is going to evolve too.
On the book club, we also, if you join our Discord, we have an event tab at the very top of the server. We're going to be posting all of the schedules for the book club, so you'll know when they pop up. They'll be alerted on the Discord, and if you have questions, you'll know in advance, and you can let us know on any talking points.
Yes, absolutely. So that's it. Lots of plugs, I know, but things are changing around here, and hopefully for the better. We want you guys to be a part of all of that. So, yeah, let's do a little more show, huh?
Sure.
I want to start with something new. We're gonna play a game.
Oh boy!
Yeah, we're gonna play a game. This is a game that I think people have been playing since the dawn of man, but we're new to it. Stick? What the?
Stick and hoop.
What's that?
You get the little berries and cream boy with the little hoop, and he's got the stick, and he's bringing it down the hill.
Hilarious.
I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Are we on the
You don't
same?
know.
Are we the same person? Because that's where my brain went too.
So the same way I can think of like Omarion, and that's like the Puerto Rican side of my brain, but then the white part comes out to think about stick and hoop.
That must be it.
Omarion was nationally known.
Sure.
He was. There's no question.
He's on the coast. He's on the coast. He's a coastal guy.
He's nationally known right now.
We don't need to keep talking about
that's the problem.
You brought it up again.
I was trying to talk about stick and hoop.
I don't know what that is, and I don't want to talk about it.
Than you.
Sean, is the game more like a Game Boy? Because I can play that.
No. It's called Two Truths and a Lie.
Oh, that's one of those games you play when you're drunk.
Yes, and
All right,
it's very simple. It's not going to be about us personally because we can't even get into it with Marco.
Excuse me?
But these
we're live here. You better be careful now.
Yeah. The Two Truths and Lie will be based purely on comics.
Okay.
Two of these things, of course, will be true facts that are just things that have really happened. One of them is totally fabricated by me. And to what degree, you don't know. This instance of True Truths and a Lie is all Marvel based. In the future, we'll do different things, but this is just where I went. And I got to tell you, in research for this, I learned a lot. I learned a lot. Marvel's an interesting place. All right, here we go. The first one is Chris Claremont, originally intended to make Cyclops and Storm a couple. Way back in the 80s, when death still mattered in comics, Jean Grey died during one of Marvel's biggest events ever, the Dark Phoenix saga. After her death, Madeline Pryor is introduced. She looks exactly like Jean. They get married, and Cyclops leaves the X-Men. The two live happily ever after. The end, right? Well, that didn't happen. That didn't go well. But Claremont originally wanted to put Storm and Cyclops together. He appeared on the Explain the X-Men podcast, and he talked about how he wanted to put them together, but Marvel felt that it was scummy for him to move on, and by him I mean Cyclops, to another person so soon, and that it would be just disruptive, so they nixed the plan. Notably, when Cyclops came back to the X-Men a little while later, Storm is the leader, and he fights her for the leadership. A lot of you guys will remember that from the X-Men animated series, but that really happened. Not in that same way, but the general idea. And when I say that really happened, I mean the Storm and Cyclops fight. So that's that. The next one is Kazar is actually the oldest Marvel character who continues to be one. Yeah. Who is the oldest Marvel character? None other than Kazar. Most people would probably say Captain America, but as it turns out, Kazar predates him by 5 years. He actually predates not only Captain America, but characters like the Human Torch and Namor. And he didn't have the greatest run. His initial series lasted for 27 issues, but he appeared first in 1936, making him a young and comfy 92 years old. So when you see Kazar running around in the Savage Land shirtless with a six-pack with his tiger companion, recognize that that is a 92-year-old man. Keep your heart out, Charles Xavier.
He's probably got that old man smell.
No, that's the tiger.
Oh, yeah. I can't imagine that's a good smelling dude.
Mm-mm.
All right, and last up, the Punisher becomes black. In the early 90s, Marvel sent the Punisher to prison. While he was there, he gets horrifically disfigured by Jigsaw, who, of course, was just also in the same prison, because that would happen. And he's convinced to let a surgeon, who's really just a doctor turned drug addict, who was also in the same prison, who's been doing experiments with melanin.
No.
He lets this surgeon repair his disfigured face, and when Punisher wakes up from the surgery, he is completely fixed up like new. The only difference is that his entire body is black. And not black like black, black like black.
What year did you say this was?
In the 90s.
90s.
Yeah.
So James, the comics writer in the Twitch chat, he's like, when was this? We don't know if this is true. So two of the three things are true that Sean just mentioned, and one of them's a lie. And we're going to have to figure that out now.
So
yeah.
So the first one, right, with Storm,
I'm going to just say this right now. I'm not going to answer any questions at all.
No, all right, but I just want to clarify the question itself is whether or not the intention was for
them to
Cyclops and Storm to be a couple. That's the question.
So you don't even know any amount of that can be a lie to you.
Oh wait, is it like the whole thing has to be either true or false?
The initial statement. So
yeah,
was Cyclops supposed to be with Storm?
Okay.
Was Punisher going to be turned black, or is Kazar the oldest?
Black?
Or was he turned black? Okay. Oh, so this is not like so this happened, quote unquote.
Exactly. And is Khazar the oldest character?
I love that, especially in the first scenario. I love that Marvel was like, it's far too soon for Scott Summers to lose his second white redheaded wife. Too soon for him to move on to a black woman. He can't listen.
We're ready for that.
Too soon.
Couldn't handle that.
He's still grieving.
Okay. I'll say that the first one is true.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's true.
Khazar, I think, is the lie.
Same.
Okay.
And Punisher is outlandish. And so I think that has to be true.
All right.
In the 90s, absolutely. Yeah. True lie, true for me as well.
Okay. And Kale said true lie, true.
Yep.
All right. How about you, Tyler?
Can't hear you, buddy.
I say I'm the same. I know that Punisher's 90s history was a little funny.
A
I
little
know he was an
funny?
angel. He was an angel at one point. So
Really? That's actually kind of cool.
he's been in Frankenstein's monster. He's been an angel,
Captain America.
and hopefully he's been black.
James, do you want to? You said false. Which one were you saying is false there? And anybody in the chat, do you guys want to add your thoughts before I actually answer?
Yo,
I think James was saying false to the Punisher stuff. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll leave a small space. Marco, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it's buck wild that any of those could be true.
the Storm Cyclops thing seems reasonable to me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially for something Claremont would have wanted to do. And then you mentioned like the explaining the X-Men podcast. I'm like, that's too specific at that point.
True
I
lie.
feel like-
True lie. Okay, cool. All right.
I feel like there was also some really good tension between a lot of characters in the Claremont X-Men era.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like you could say just about anything in it. There's probably some intention there.
Mhm.
Dude, I read that and I was like, wait, we're not getting this? Like, hello? Are you guys ready for me to expose the lie?
Do it.
All right, here we go. So as it turns out, you were all wrong.
Oh.
You were
Khazar's
all
a lie,
wrong.
right?
Every single one of you was wrong. The lie is Cyclops and Storm.
Oh, damn it.
Really?
Oh,
Oh, you got real specific with that one too.
Mhm.
Good job, Sean.
Thank you.
That got me.
Thank
because
you.
everything leading up to it, Phoenix prior, and then damn, okay,
It
Yeah.
felt like you were reading an article too.
yeah,
Like I was trying to metagame this, you know.
I figured you guys might, so I metagamed you.
Okay.
Damn.
Card
Okay.
game player
Well
to
done.
the death. Yeah. So the Claremont thing is just completely made up. I just took the reality of it and extended that. Khazar really is the oldest Marvel character in that way. And
What was
Punisher
Khazar's first
really was
issue?
black.
Do you have Khazar's first issue? Was it?
Like, what was it called? The book? Or
I mean, because Marvel Comics #1 was Human Torch.
yeah. So he had a book. He had a book that came out in '96, and that Marvel #1, I believe, was or not 96, 36. And I think Marvel #1 was 39.
wow,
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is before they were still Timely Comics at that point, or
Ooh,
this might be predating Timely Comics. Then
I believe they were. I
well,
believe
around
they
that time
were.
they jumped to a whole bunch of fucking different names.
Yeah.
They might have
It's
still
it's
been a magazine
wonky
imprint.
history. Yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We'll do that again. If you did, let us know in the comments if that was fun for you, and what if you're listening to this after the fact, what did you think that the answers were? Because just be honest, because I'm really curious to see how many of you were stumped. And again, if it was fun for you, we'll do it again. James, the comics writer, says he's a Tarzan knockoff that somehow has survived Tarzan being irrelevant. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, man. That Disney Tarzan with that Phil Collins soundtrack,
nice, good
that's
stuff.
still like a yearly watch for me. Even though he swings using his butt cheeks at one point. So
Ooh, that's
yeah.
Well, how was your swing, Tyler?
I mean, hey, let's not talk about
hands? That. I don't know what the hell.
I'm not talking about swinging on this podcast. Okay, let's go to the next thing.
Well, do the jungle. Do the jungle.
Anyway, let's move things along and let's get into the news. Let's talk about DC. We haven't talked about DC in the new year, so let's talk about DC. And of course, anytime we talk about DC on this podcast, you never know whether we're going to be just completely dunking on them or not. And this is a time where, frankly, we're probably going to be dunking on them. So strap in. New rumors suggest that Flashpoint is going to almost completely dismantle everything that Zack Snyder introduced into the DCEU. They're going to usher in a new era of the films. Now, we've heard this before to some degree, but we have these rumors anyway are much more specific than anything we've ever heard before. So the rumor is that the Flashpoint film is going to erase Ben Affleck's Batman and Henry Cavill's Superman from continuity. They're going to become not canon or just swept away somehow and will be replaced by essentially Batgirl, Leslie Grace, and Supergirl being played by Sasha Calle. And those characters, along with the Flash and Shazam, will be the basis of a new Justice League.
Is this going to be the Supergirl in the movie, in the Flash movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's major.
So, damn, that's pretty buck wild. It's a shame. I would really thought the rumor was going to be Zack Snyder somehow destroyed the universe anyway.
I think most people would say he did that already.
You're going to get the Zack Snyder fanboys into the chat now.
I am a fan. I like the Snyder Cut Justice League. We know this.
Especially the black and white version. That was good.
I didn't see it. Did you watch it?
Yeah. I only made it halfway, but it was cool.
Wait, is that a truth or a lie? I don't know.
No, seriously. Yeah. I rewatched it because I wanted to see it in black and white, all artsy and shit, and it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, nothing I want to see more than a Justice League movie in black and white. That's exactly what I want. What should be the most colorful sort of property out there? I want that washed out in black and white.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah. What do you guys? Obviously, it's just a rumor. You have to take it with a grain of salt. We don't know the validity of this. I will say that the scoopers who are reporting this have been right several times in the past. That doesn't mean that they're right now. But taking this at face value, if this is true, how do you guys feel about that? Just cutting Batman and Superman out of the equation.
Man.
Do we know there's no source, right? It's just like source, trust me, bro, right? Like that's all the sources.
No, it's, people from Twitter. We have, My Time to Shine. Hello. And then several others, but you can't, it's tough to take, because these people are who knows who they are, right?
Yeah. But it's like my uncle who works at Nintendo.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we all
exactly.
have one.
Whoa, yours too?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, he does.
Yeah. So I feel like the removing Affleck as Batman, if they're introducing what's his face, Pattinson, I think that's a clean break. I think we have that sort of as a precedent coming into the movie. So I don't know that I have as much of an issue with that. Mm-hmm. Henry Cavill, I think, has been doing a really good job as Superman. So I'd be sad to see him go. But my concern was the fact that they're leading with Batgirl and the Flash. The Flash, notably, a character that everyone's just kind of like lukewarm on. Mm. And then from a production standpoint, Batgirl has her HBO show, which became a movie, and it's like also lukewarm. It doesn't feel like they have a lot of confidence on this. And so if this is a reboot, this is the softest fucking reboot that they could possibly imagine, because it's not ideal.
I also don't see how you don't reboot with your other two big properties, Aquaman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, 100%.
Like if this is true, I mean, throw them into the mix, then I think you got a decent Justice League lineup there.
I've seen photos of Gal Gadot in the Wonder Woman makeup chair recently. So I do think she's in the film.
I don't think that this rumor suggests that they won't be a part of it. Just that nucleus, what I described, is like the baseline of the league.
Is this the one that also like retcons the entire Wonder Woman kind of happening? I think that's what part of this this rumor is. It's like Steve Trevor never actually went to Themyscira or something like that, and so I don't know. It's a buck wild rumor. It's like a little. It's like it's so in depth and detailed where I'm like, it's a little sus. But
it's also pretty weak that you're replacing Batman with Batgirl and Superman with Supergirl. Like, no offense to those characters, but it's not your top tier. And so if you want to lead with a Justice League movie at any point in the next few years, are they leading? Are they draws? I feel like it's, again, lukewarm.
Saying Batgirl doesn't draw dimes. I mean, here's the thing too. Like, I'm excited for how messy this is gonna get if this is true. Like I'm not drinking tea right now, but like the idea that they're gonna be the Trinity now. That's what DC calls it, right? Is gonna be Shazam, which I think people think is fun, but like not like a Superman level character. And then two POC women characters in Batgirl and Supergirl, who I believe is South American, I believe this actress is.
Kryptonian. So
she's not a blonde white person. Oh yeah, she's Kryptonian. Yeah, it's right next to Chile, I believe. Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be messy, which I'm excited for. I'm ready.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not happy about this. I think it's funny. I like. Yeah. It's goofy. Like, there's no way this makes sense. So like, Batman and Superman are characters that really I don't think you can ruin. Right? Batman has been through the ringer on film. Those Schumacher films.
Man of Steel.
No. I was talking about Batman, but if the Schumacher Batman movies didn't make Batman untouchable in Hollywood, I'm not sure that anything can, just because of the massive popularity of the character. And when it comes to Superman, people may not have liked Man of Steel, but the fact of the matter is that people are desperate for a good Superman movie. And one thing people do like is Henry Cavill, especially now. There's no way you go away from him in my mind. No way at all.
That's the thing about this news that does sort of bum me out, is that if they're going away from Superman, are they going away from Henry Cavill? And man, I would love for him to have like a real good shot.
Yeah.
Like it's just like one more good chance.
Yeah. James in the comments on Twitch says, Ben Affleck is done. Cavill likes playing Geralt. Why not? Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they can rely on Ben Affleck anymore. Obviously, he's depressed Ben. Everywhere he goes, he talks about how bummed out he is.
I think this is good for his health, honestly.
The way he's been talking, his mental health was ruined by Batman, which is no surprise. But I don't think that you pivot away from Batman entirely. We have a Batman movie coming out. I think you just get another actor, or let Michael Keaton, which is I think this is not a good idea, but let Michael Keaton just be the Batman of the DCEU for a little while, and then have him be replaced by someone down the road. Whether he trains his replacement and it can be like an Ed McGuinness or Terry McGinnis type of thing, or just do the Flashpoint and let that bring in a new Batman somehow. Yeah. I don't know. But to me, you're writing yourself into a corner by doing this. I really believe that, because you can't long term have a universe without Batman or Superman. That will not work.
But like, this is such a DCEU thing, writing themselves into a corner.
Yes.
Like, come on, guys. It's simple. Just I don't know. They had a template from Marvel. Not to, like, Marvel movies have their issues, but in terms of marketability and building a universe, they are the standard, really.
Yeah.
And like, it's right. It was right there, guys. Like, I don't know.
DC has to get their house in order big time.
The weird thing is that like Flash is coming out after Pattinson's Batman. Like you have a precedent there to then introduce him because people will have seen the movie. You can gauge hype from that, and if you manage to slip him into the Flash movie, you have yourself a new Batman. That seems the most logical and easiest way to get rid of Affleck and slip in Pattinson as the new leader. Like that doesn't feel hard.
I would be very surprised if Pattinson signs on for a Justice League movie.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, same.
I think part of the draw for him and Matt Reeves was that this was disconnected, and they have been consistent in saying that this would not cross over with anything. This is why, for the last 3 years, I have been saying there's no way that it makes sense for DC to make these crazy offshoot movies, because this is what happens. Now they're in a situation where there are currently 3 different Batmen. None of them connect. One of them is leaving. One of them won't ever appear in a Justice League movie, and one of them is 97 years old. So how do you solve that problem? Like, I just don't get it.
Paul's in the chat says Cavill needs another shot at playing Superman, which I think we agree on. I don't think Henry Cavill was the issue with the Cavill Superman appearances. Not at all. I think he was kind of one of the shining points of it.
Thanks, by the way, for joining us, Paul. Appreciate you. We'll leave it there. I don't think we're going to hear anything about this for a while, so I just wanted to get it out there, talk about it, and then we'll probably know more when DC feels like we should know more.
This was one of the prediction questions, right? Like, will DC announce a Justice League movie? So I said no. Oops. Let's see.
We'll see.
Well, they would have to say Justice League movie. It's not enough for the end of Flashpoint to be, hey, we should start a league. That's not enough.
Agreed. Okay, cool.
Weird that they're not like there's a power vacuum right now in the Justice League. I don't know why they're not bringing up my boy Swamp Thing to fill the gap. I feel like if you need a top tier character, he had a TV show. This is the place to put him.
Marco, TV show that was canceled, Marco.
we're live right now, and so I don't want to just put you on blast, but
we can't
bringing up
that
Swamp Thing when I'm trying to move the show along, just so you can show off your shit T-shirt,
read the shirt.
Is not the way.
Put some respect on the boy.
Reading that shirt, get the hell out.
What is it with dudes and Swamp Thing, Marco?
Let me tell you.
All right, Sean. Next topic.
Thank you. Yeah. Speaking of movies, we have a new movie announcement. Or rather, not a movie announcement, a series announcement. Scott Pilgrim is coming to Netflix.
Let's go.
An anime, believe it or not. We actually just did a book club, by the way, on Scott Pilgrim. So head on over and check that out if you are interested in the character or in this news. But Brian Lee O'Malley is actually going to be, who created the book, is going to be writing and producing the show. With the Grabinskis, or with Ben Grabinski, who was the showrunner on Are You Afraid of the Dark, the revival. They brought it back.
Okay.
They're also going to be bringing back Scott Pilgrim versus the World to theaters to celebrate its 10th anniversary. I know they put out the video game.
10?
Pretty nuts.
Wow.
They re-released the video game, and they did some cool stuff with that last year. So, this is cool. Actually, it was you said last year, Marco, and I'm thinking you mean 2020, and then I'm like, wait, no, that was 2021. But that was last year.
Let me talk to you about the passage of time, Sean.
So, I read the Scott Pilgrim books 1 and 2. We did that for the book club. I enjoyed it, but Scott Pilgrim in 2022 or 3 or 4, whatever. Yikes! I don't know.
I mean, I think. I was gonna say, go ahead, you go, Cal.
I feel like this will be similar to the premise of the film, which will be Scott Pilgrim against the evil Axis. It probably won't be the evolution of Scott Pilgrim as a person.
I don't know. I feel like there was so much that you didn't get in the movie that you get in the books. Like there's was it 3, 4? I feel like even parts of 5 you just completely skip over or gloss over, and I feel like this is a prime way to kind of get that story. You can update it because I think they're definitely dated references, but you update that, you get a pretty clean narrative that can last you a couple seasons.
That makes sense to me.
Or 2 for Netflix.
Sure.
Yeah.
Max.
1 maybe even. I don't know. I think it's great that we get to, showcase the, a peak incel nice guy to a new generation of fans. So that's what I'm excited for.
Yeah. I think so. Can this get over? I think, yeah. I think Scott Pilgrim got over on film. And I don't think that there's any better place for this story and the way that Brian Lee O'Malley told it visually. I don't think there's a better place for it than Netflix, or rather than an anime. And Netflix obviously has put money and time into animes and things like this before. So I think it's a perfect marriage, honestly. And I think the series format probably benefits Scott Pilgrim far better than film, in my opinion, just because of the nature of that story. I think it was, I didn't see the movie fully, but I would imagine, and you guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong, that it felt condensed compared to what the story can be. Even if you cut out the weird, Knives Chow portion of it.
They don't. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they definitely. It's definitely truncated, but it sort of takes away some of the, like we said in the book club, some of the character growth that Scott goes through.
Right.
But it also doesn't set him up quite as much as a douchebag at the same time. He's just kind of there.
He's a slacker, more so than anything else.
He's Michael Cera. Which is, all you need to know, really.
Also,
Speaking
instantly
of-
unlikable.
Yeah. So speaking of, I would be curious to see if they can get some of the live action actors to voice the anime characters. I mean, it's
would be
Netflix. I don't know what most of them are doing. Besides, I feel like a third of them are in Wes Anderson movies. But actually, Chris Evans is a little busy. Maybe they probably won't get him. But
yeah.
Brandon, what's his name? Brandon Ruth. He's busy at the CW.
So he's not busy.
yeah. They're about to get sold off. Let's be real.
Yeah, have you heard about this? The CW hasn't been profitable since 2006. Incredible.
Big shock.
Incredible.
Pikachu face. Shock.
Yeah, right.
Last thing I'll say on the Scott Pilgrim piece, I'd be very excited. You mentioned it earlier, but Sean, they've been doing a lot in terms of investing in anime on Netflix with their own. They'll send out producers to adapt really popular ones, and I think that it's been pretty successful. So I full faith in that. Live action, that's something else, but give me an anime, 100%. I think it's consumable and really good.
Yeah, let's leave it there. We'll see it when it comes out. I think this is cool. Let's talk about the first union in comics.
Huh?
Yeah. So we have talked about the first union in American comics. I can't speak to outside of that, but we have followed the story of Comic Book Workers United, who basically is just a union that consists of image creators, not creators, I'm sorry, image staffers. They have become an official union. Remember that this was a huge to-do where Image kind of said they wouldn't just acknowledge the union. There would need to be a vote. The vote happened, and it looks like it was 7-2, resulting in the union coming into existence. So that's great news. Last time we talked about this, we ran through the list of everything that they wanted to make sure that they got out of it, what they wanted to get for comic book staffers and down the road, hopefully creators. It's a long list. But, while we didn't agree with absolutely everything that was on it necessarily, for the most part, as a baseline, it's a great place to start. You're talking about things like, better pay, and sort of transparency about what people get paid. Notoriously in the industry, talking about wages is taboo still, and that's really odd. Different creators get paid different things, and there's hush hush about it. It's almost like not a game, but like a competition. How little can we pay these creators and still get them to work? Unfortunately,
it would be for the staffers in this case.
But I just mean like that.
Well, in general, that's what capitalism has taught companies to do.
Yeah,
because if you let the workers know how much they're getting paid and they realize they're getting paid significantly less, then oh no, I might actually have to pay people more. Oh no.
And to that, I think also just to clarify, this also provides them with more negotiating power. Less so outright, this is how much we're getting paid, but that's still dependent on whatever contract they come out with, and this is the first step towards that.
Well, in their their article or whatever, they specifically call out, they want to create a more competitive industry through salary, so they definitely want more bread.
Yeah.
And things like that, making sure that whenever there's a space that opens up for a job that's above, the pay grade or the current status of the workers, that people who currently are staffed by Image have the first shot at those job titles, ways to address lack of diversity, just all kinds of things like that. That we generally agree are positive things for the industry as a whole and for Image. So I don't have much to say other than kudos to them. Hopefully this does become something that sweeps the industry and we can see more of this. And, staffers getting this is great. I really hope we can see something for at least the creators who are employed by Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, etc.
That gets a little tricky.
I know
to get into the bigger companies there. I mean,
know it does. Yeah.
Specifically for this Image thing, I think right before they, passed that vote, I think it's at Slevish or Sasha Ehead on Twitter tweeted that apparently Jim Valentino, one of the what do they call themselves? Founders?
Founders, yeah.
Founders, yeah. Specifically removed the unionizing members of the Image Comics staff from the Shadowline book Hellcop office credits.
Yep.
So, I mean, technically they weren't a union at that point, so I don't know if that's considered retaliatory. But great start.
It might not be legally, but
yeah, that's not the bosses quaking in their boots already and already getting pissed off. It's probably a sign you're doing something right, in my opinion. But
one concern that I have is this is great that this is being put forth, but I wonder as other companies follow suit whether or not from a budgetary perspective they can sort of handle it. Usually smaller companies struggle to be able to meet, again, if it were making the market a bit more competitive, you start to be able to lose some of the talent that you would at smaller publishers, Dark Horse, IDW, Boom, and in favor for, more competitive stuff like going to an Image where if you're getting paid more, it makes more sense if you're doing the job, here, I can be doing it better there. Mm-hmm. So I do think that once the agreement sort of comes out and we get some of that transparency, I wonder how that'll play with some of the other smaller companies that exist. I'm even thinking of something like a Wave Blue World where it's pretty much just Tyler and his wife with a few employees here and there from our last interview with them. So just other considerations that to be taken into account.
Yeah. I definitely think this is not the first one, that not the last one to happen.
For sure.
I know. I mean, I live close to a Starbucks, the first Starbucks that unionized. So that kind of domino has already fallen, and it's curious to see, what other, companies and industries kind of follow suit next. So
Paul's
I'm excited.
in the Twitch chat said, shocked it has taken so long for a union to come about. Hope it is a signal to all that things need to improve for those that create so much amazing content. Yeah, definitely. You know, we want to see staffers, creators who are, you know, working hard and oftentimes in weird, not so great conditions. Make sure that they, you know, have some amount of protections and that they're getting paid what they're due.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how this progresses. I don't think that this will be the last one, like Tyler said. But keeping it Image, they have announced another exclusive creator deal. This time with Jeff Lemire.
Let's go.
Jeff Lemire is going exclusive with Image Comics, as much as that means in the case of Image. Basically, at Image Comics, exclusive means you can't do anything with Marvel or DC, because he's still going to be able to finish out Black Hammer. He's still going to be able to do Substack. When I say finish out Black Hammer, I mean continue to write Black Hammer for Dark Horse for like still years.
I was going to say, I don't know anything about him finishing Black Hammer.
He has at least a couple more years worth of stories for Black Hammer coming. So that will all still come out through Dark Horse and Substack. And then whatever other unique stories he wants to tell over at Substack, he will still be able to do. No word on where those will eventually be published physically, though I would imagine that will be through Image. He did also announce, there were a couple of announcements about new projects that Lemire would be able to put out, Bone Orchard and Little Monsters. And those are both projects that he's going to draw as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Little Monsters, I thought that was with Dustin Nguyen, no?
It says, I'm excited to make Image the exclusive home for all my projects in the years to come, both solo projects that I will draw myself and various collaborations. Bone Orchard and Little Monsters is just a start. Okay, so maybe that is with Dustin Nguyen.
Okay, yeah. And I think Bone Orchards is with Andreas Sorrentino, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So Jeff Lemire notably is doing Robin and Batman now, which is, the last issue is about to drop, and Swamp Thing Green Hell, right? Which I don't know how long that is, but it's a mini
as well.
Okay, so I would imagine that once that wraps, that will be the end of his Marvel and DC work for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, those must be like done as far as like he's concerned.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, in my opinion, Jeff Lemire's best work is when he's not at the big two.
100%.
I think he has a singular vision for things that maybe editorial kind of gets involved in, and but when he's allowed to kind of just do his own story, it's some of my favorite work out there. Black Hammer, what was the Gideon's
Gideon Falls?
Gideon Falls, like stuff like that. His more recent stuff is great, honestly. So I'm excited to see what this can do. I mean, in my opinion, an exclusive doesn't mean shit anymore. Especially when it comes to Image Comics. But if this means he has a secured output and has financial stability, good for him. So
this is the Brubaker and Phillips, they're exclusive with Image, and they've been crushing. I feel like I haven't seen Brubaker on anything else other than an Image book, and so and even in our Discord, we're all big Brubaker fans and Phillips fans, and so when this team puts something out, everybody jumps on it. So I think it's a fruitful decision, and to your point, Sean, on the Substack piece, that's going to naturally be the home when that kind of stuff comes out to print. So this is definitely the long-term move for Jeff Lemire, and a creator of that kind of caliber. Very excited.
Well, if you're as big a fan of us as our Discord is of Brubaker and Phillips, go ahead and hit us with a follow if you're in the chat right now. And if you're not, make sure you go to twitch.tv/thecomicspals and just hit that follow button. Takes you no time at all. Just go ahead and follow for us. Really appreciate everyone who goes ahead and does that. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about Marvel. So Marvel has announced some of their plans for Black History Month. That includes a Marvel Voices issue, a new edition, which will come out obviously in February. It's going to be putting a spotlight on Black characters and creators. So, we like that. Of course, in February, you must do it because we don't exist outside of February. So they have announced, though, a line of variant covers for Black History Month done by Swaby. Joshua Sway Swaby is going to be doing these variant covers. These are the books that they chose. So February 9th, we're going to get Devil's Reign number 4, and they specifically include featuring Luke Cage. February 9th, Avengers 53. February 16th, X-Men number 8, featuring Storm. February 16th, Dark Ages number 5. February 23, Iron Man 17. February 23, Captain America Iron Man number 4.
I'm so glad that they highlighted the only 2 Black characters at Marvel.
I'm so glad they highlighted all the Black solo books at Marvel.
So I thought that was extremely funny, right? I couldn't believe that. And this is what kills me about, whenever the big 2 try to do diversity, and it's just outrageously bad. And it's like when DC did the March Madness bracket thing, right?
Oh yeah.
And the DC, what was it called? DC
JLQ.
JLQ, thank you. Yeah, JLQ. And then that book didn't win. It got bounced out in the first round, and everybody was mad. There was no one happy except the people who don't like LGBTQ people. Total fail, right? So I was like, okay, let me see how many books Marvel is publishing in which the character or the creator is Black, just to see, right? And so I got a list. This list is every book that is an ongoing series at Marvel. Okay, that's what I have in front of me. And I got this from Wikipedia, to be fair. So if it's wrong, head on over there. They're always begging for money. Tell them to get their facts straight, Wikipedia. So here we go.
Wait, can you guess?
Okay, go right ahead. Yeah.
I think it's one. I think it's
one book.
One book. I can't think of any ongoing. Yeah, I think it's just the one book.
Total ongoing books right now, you mean?
No, just how many ongoing books feature in the starring role a Black character and or creator?
I'm gonna say 5.
5, okay.
I was gonna say 3.
3. And Tyler, you said 1.
I'm just gonna go with 1. I'm gonna do the Price is Right situation here.
Fair enough. So
$1, Bob.
Here we go. Black Panther, right? So it's automatically that there's 1. Black Panther is obviously a Black character written by John Ridley, who is Black. Yeah. Miles Morales.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And we're done.
Oh, damn it.
So I was close. It would have been 2, right?
Yeah.
I forgot Miles Morales. Okay. I guess Black Panther counts as 2, but yeah.
Now, if you want to stretch that and go into limited series, there is a Black Panther Legends series that's ongoing right now that I've never heard of before. I looked at this list, and then we're done. So if you encompass all of Marvel, it's 3 books.
And there's not a Punisher series, so that doesn't count.
Well done.
Yeah.
Is Vita Ayala not on that list anywhere?
I think are they still doing X-Corp? Is X-Corp still even going on? I don't even know.
To be fair to Marvel in this instance, a lot of the X-Men books are not on this list because they're not
Limited.
coming out anymore.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, because
X Lives and X Deaths is gonna be the thing. So, you know, if you were to add that, then you would have Vita.
Right. Okay.
So then it would be 4. And that's including the limited series. So not a good look, Marvel, for Marvel Voices. How many freelancers who never work for you are you going to have to conscript to make your Marvel Voices book happen, Marvel? Like, what are we doing? What is happening? Oh, hey, by the way, Luke Cage book, right? That got canceled. Probably really great to have on your docket right now. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Oh, boy. And like you mentioned that list, was Black Panther even on a list of variants?
No.
No,
Yeah,
that's right. What the fuck?
This is easy. Come on, guys.
Imagine that you have to say Devil's Reign #4 featuring Luke Cage when you could have said City on Fire, Luke Cage, City on Fire. You could have just had Luke Cage on Front Street, but instead you want to say featuring Luke Cage. How come we always have to be featured? Let me be the main character. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is happening?
Well, you know, Black Panther featuring T'Challa, right?
Well, yeah, you've got Martin Freeman in that title.
That's right.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah. Yep.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Happy Black History Month.
Thanks, Kel. Appreciate you.
I was just thinking about it. How many? I was trying to figure out how many DC books would fall under that, and the only one I could think of was Static.
Well, there's I Am Batman. There's that one too.
Oh,
I don't know. This whole initiative for Black History Month from Marvel feels like the equivalent of posting a black square on your Instagram. Like, it's like they're such a titan in the industry where they have total control on actually bringing, you know, black voices to this, and it's only one artist too doing the variants, right? Like, I mean, yeah. Good for him. Like that's cool. Probably a good paycheck. Yeah. But like you can do this for every book. You're doing friggin' the Gwenverse variants across all of your books throughout the year. Like, God forbid you do this with, you know, black characters.
Imagine that, a white blonde lady gets all the attention.
and you know what? Like I don't even come on here and like rant and rave about diversity, but what annoys me is when they pay lip service to it and, you know, you're trying to get people excited about it, but then you announce your plans and it's like, okay, you know, we had, I can't remember if this story was told on the show. We had Jeremy Holt on and they talked about how they got the Marvel Voices job. That was on the show, right?
Yes, that was.
Okay. Yeah. And they said that, you know, they got the call and it was like, can you turn this around over the weekend? You know, for Marvel Voices, the I don't want to speak out of turn, but it was
like the Asian.
It was the Asian edition. I just didn't want to say like this Asian, right?
The Asian edition.
But you know, that's the foresight that they had, and I'm sure that Marvel and DC both do things, you know, whimsically with things that aren't diversity based. So I'm not going to chide them too hard for that, but it just feels weird to me that things like this come together haphazardly. And it's like, oh, who do we grab? Get Sean Bartley, hosts a podcast about comics. Maybe he can write, who knows, get him, you know, things like that. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
But enough about minorities. Let's talk about the X-Men. We've got a block of X-Men news between them just, you know, getting closer and closer to March and sort of the relaunch of it, the very soft relaunch with the Dawn of X stuff, continuing where Inferno left off, and Jonathan Hickman's most recent appearance on the Explain the X-Men podcast. We have so many things to talk about as it relates to the X-Men. So we'll start with the news about X-Men Red. We learned a little bit more about what X-Men Red is going to be. First of all, we'll start with the creative team. It's Al Ewing and Stefano Caselli. We just saw Caselli's work in Inferno #4, so staying within the X-Men ecosystem there. I like that. This is the same creative team as Sword, right?
I believe
Ewing is
Caselli
definitely on Sword.
Yeah, I think Caselli at least did one issue of Sword. I know he's been on it. I don't know if Sword, I don't think has had a set artist on it. But yeah, this just seems to be the continuation of Sword. So
cool. Yeah. And it feels like all the books they've announced are basically the continuation of something that was already being published. Like Legion of X is basically just a continuation of Legion, which we'll talk about here in a second. I'm sorry, Way of X. Yeah. Thank you. But we know also sort of what the book X-Men Red is going to be about. It's going to focus on Arakko, which of course is a terraformed Mars. And it's just going to follow these characters as they figure out, how to live and how to live in a place that isn't in constant wartime, right? This is actually a book that I literally just advocated for in our Discord. It's weird that we never got an Arakko-based book that follows these characters and sort of figures out, well, what do we do now? I think that's a really interesting question. There's a lot of stuff to pull from when you talk about, like, in our actual world, what do societies do when the war is over? What happens? And
it's funny because Sword has been that, at least for the past arc. It's been about Storm kind of fitting into her role as the royal regent of Arakko. Yeah. And yeah, it still deals with like the space station, the Sword space station, and Brand and stuff like that. But like It's been that. So maybe this is just the formality of continuing that story.
Yeah, I was wondering where that was happening, because I was wondering, they had that that big thing happen, and Storm is the Queen of Mars or whatever, and it's like, okay, what now? So I didn't know that was happening in Sword.
I don't want to criticize Marvel. I don't want to criticize the X writers or creators there, because they couldn't have anticipated the pandemic, and obviously Hickman leaving and the mechanics of that shook things up. We'll talk about that more later. This is a book that should have existed already.
Yeah,
and it should have existed in a way that promoted the fact that Storm was the main character, that would follow Arakko. That should have been spinning out of Ten of Swords. There should have been the Hellfire Gala.
Yeah,
there should have been no delay. Should have gone straight into X-Men Red. And I don't know why that didn't happen, but it needed to.
At least we got Trial of Magneto, spinning out of the Hellfire Gala.
Great plot. Great plot. Tremendous
Love the plot.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm actually excited about this. Sword, I picked up the first few issues and I was like, this is fine. This I will read. This I will follow.
Yeah, for sure. This I think is what we needed to get invested for the planet and for these characters. Now that I know that that's what Sword is kind of about, I might read like the past few issues just to see where they're kind of at, because that is pretty interesting. I like the fact that Storm was the one that was chosen, and she's one of my favorite X-Men. So the fact that we're just going to get more Storm, 100% down for that. Yeah.
And also, spoiler alert, but it brings adult Cable back into the mix too.
Hey.
So gotta love it.
Kid Cable was cool.
Can we talk about this hot fire? I believe it's a variant by Russell Dauterman.
Oh, it's so good.
So good.
On screen now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Beautiful. Like I personally love to see comic book artists draw absolutely beautiful characters. And I'm not talking about like, wow, this is beautiful art. I'm talking about sexy, right? And Russell Dauterman is up there with Clay Mann as two artists who get it done. Let's look at Storm right now. Look at how good she looks. She's perfect, flawless.
I gotta put the horny alert as a scene on here for when Sean talks about Dauterman art.
Go ahead.
I'll have the dog just bonking you in the stream next time.
When he drew Emma Frost with them gloves that don't even fit, I was done. I was floored. floored.
I mean, so
I couldn't believe it.
this shows like how the difference between you and I, because what jumps out to me in this agreed awesome cover is Magneto pretty much doing the same stance as his idol animation from Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And I'm like,
you're completely right.
It's literally that. So
we have two different focuses, my friend.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, indeed.
That's what marriage does to you, Tyler. Welcome to it. I have one woman and I look at her.
So we'll get this book in April 6th. So a little bit of a wait, but yeah, cool stuff. Let's move forward. Let's talk about Legion of X, which we now have a creative team for and a little bit of information about what it's going to be about. So it's going to be written by Cy Spurrier, one of Marco's boys.
That's right.
Who did Way of X and the one-shot Onslaught Revelation,
Yep.
Which I did not think was too great. Thought it was a little rough.
I enjoyed it.
Fair enough. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Little bit janky. Little janky. This though is going to feature Jan Bazaldua, who did Winter Guard, which was pretty good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's just going to be a continuation of Way of X. Spurrier talks about his idea for what this is. He describes it as a precinct-style ensemble story. It's going to feature Nightcrawler again, Pixie, Juggernaut for some reason. And this is the quote from Spurrier. I've wanted to do a precinct-style ensemble story since I first read House of X. For the first time, the Marvel Universe has this densely packed, beautiful, and beautifully volatile population of superhumans out in the open, all in one place. It needs peacekeepers, sure, but it's a mistake to think of them as simply cops. You don't get far in Krakoa if the limit of your imagination is beating people up or reaching for a gun. Mutant civilization needs those who think differently. That's where Nightcrawler, Legion, Pixie, and Juggernaut come in, along with a rotating cast of your favorite mutants and non-mutants, and a couple of new faces you're going to want to watch very, very closely. So I want to get out in front of this and say this is the book that I wish X Factor had been.
Oh, fair. Okay.
It's gonna be Krakoa 99.
Yeah, I like how Spurrier is like, we can't have cops, that just beat up people, so that's why I brought in the Juggernaut.
Right, right.
Krakoa
known
Street
for
Blues.
peacekeeping.
Yeah.
How many other cop shows do I know?
It's a weird follow-up from Way of X, which dealt with this like abstract concept of like
making religion. And
right.
Well, making the culture, I believe, is what Way of X was, like solidifying what mutant culture is.
Yeah, and for this to be the follow-up, this is so dissonant for me. I'm gonna pick this book up just because of Psy, and I don't know that the content, like this blurb, I don't know that it like hooked me, but I like Psy's work. I'm gonna at least give it a try. I would have liked a more focused Way of X style kind of book, because that was something that I think was interesting, but I don't think really got off the floor.
It's weird to me that Nightcrawler made this jump.
Yeah, exactly.
So the reason why I said what I said and why I think that this has the potential to be better than Way of X is because what I feel these X-Men books have really suffered from is a lack of focus in general. Right. And so Way of X conceptually is like huge, but it never really delivered on its promise. And I think you can say that about several of the books that were part of the line. This at least is a concept that seems hard to miss on. It's very specific and it justifies itself if it does what it literally says. So hopefully Psy sticks to that and we can get it. I'm not necessarily floored by the concept, but at least if he does what he says, I can trust that will happen. And if he's a good writer, which I believe him to be, then this will be good.
That's fair.
I like the concept a lot. It lends itself to a serialized storytelling,
Right.
And put a ragtag group of like C-list, not Nightcrawler, but C-list, X-Men characters in there. Blindfold's back, surprisingly. She hasn't been back because of the whole Destiny thing. They didn't want any kind of precogs on Krakoa.
Right,
so
right.
she's back in the mix. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Good point.
Krakoa 5-0.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me 3 more.
Oh, damn it.
There's a Law and Order one there.
Krakoa Blues.
Kurt Bridges.
Oh, good. That was good. Well done.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, I just got that.
All right.
All right.
Wow, that went over better than I thought it would.
Can we get one more? He said, give me 3 more. I gave you 1. You gave 1. Can we get 1 more?
I can do it.
Around the spot.
Burt Reynolds. Help me out here.
Burt Reynolds.
Blue Bloods. It's right there.
Oh, Krakoa, Life on the Streets.
All right.
The Wire. No, that didn't work.
Yeah, I thought about The Wire first, but then I went to that one.
You can't really do that. You can't really do that.
Yeah. Marvel is bringing back the X-Men vote. So last year, I think it was, we had at the start of the year, we had the X-Men vote of 2021. And basically the concept was Marvel gave us several different characters and allowed us to choose which one of them would be on the team. And of course, you had options like Banshee. You had options like Boom Boom. You had options, real winners like Strong Guy. Just an amazing crop of characters. Of course, Polaris won, which I don't think should have surprised anybody at all.
I believe she won by all these like fraudulent mail-in ballots put in by dead people. I think that's what's going on. We need to have a recount. I still think the recount still needs to happen. I can't believe they're doing a vote so soon. Boom Boom was robbed.
Boom Boom was robbed.
Boom Boom was robbed.
Well, what I heard actually is that Strong Guy really did win, and that he will be revealed as a member of the X-Men in 2022.
Oh, with Charles Xavier Jr. is coming back too, right?
They're going to revive Charles Xavier Jr. and and they're going to lead the X-Men. That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's okay. Cool.
But they are bringing back the X-Men vote, which was another one of those things that, so like DC had their thing. This, I feel like it definitely went over better, but I think people still had problems with it. Partially because, as Tyler is joking about, people did feel like it was rigged, that having Polaris there polarized it.
I hate you. I mean, I think talking to Leia Williams, we can prove that it wasn't rigged, because she was like, yo, I didn't want that. Like, I wanted Polaris to stay on X Factor.
I don't think she even wanted Polaris to be a potential.
That seemed to be derailing her story.
Because if you look at this list, right, who of them at the time was on a team?
Boom Boom was on New Mutants.
Boom was on New Mutants, and so was Cannonball, right? But I think that's it. Well, Sunspot probably was.
X-Corps? Would he have? It might have been in the works.
That wasn't out yet, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Polaris was definitely, undoubtedly, the most well-known character on this list, and she won. So hopefully this time they do it in a way it's not as obvious. This felt like, for those of you who are like WWE stans, this felt like Taboo Tuesday, where they would give you 3 choices for the kind of match. And it's like, hey, we could have a regular match, we could have a chair match, or we could have a Hell in a Cell. What are you going to choose, right? So hopefully they don't include a major character like that. But at the same time, do I need a book with Strong Guy in it? I don't know. I mean, you're
getting one. There's that secret X-Men one shot coming out where all the losers of the previous X-Men vote.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of doing their own, their own mission in a way.
Yeah. Don't love that either. But
who would you throw into the mix here?
Okay. So first of all, I would instantly do Armor. And Marrow. I love Armor.
I'm pretty sure those are your picks when we talked about it the first time.
Yeah. Surge. I'm okay. Marvel. Please, I'm begging you, please bring back Surge. Help heal the 16-year-old who fell in love with Surge, and then she fell off the face of the earth.
I don't remember Surge.
Is one of my favorite Marvel characters, and she's nowhere. Help me, please. Bring back Surge.
Oh, that's Surge. Oops. I would say put my boy. I got two choices here: Glob Herman,
Of course.
or let's throw Maggot into the mix.
But who's voting for them?
That's what I think it should be, like really, really bad characters. So you can
Bad?
bad. As in, I would say, not well known, kind of misfit characters.
C-list.
That way, you can then put them to the A-list. It's like a huge promotion, and that way, there's no Polaris that's going to be, rigging the votes. Really, like you can throw, I don't know, Dupe into here. You can throw Ink into here, or I don't know, just No Girl. You go, girl. Like whatever.
Who's my guy from Grant's Run? Who's like a bird creature
Beak.
who just?
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, Beak.
Go ahead, Marco.
I was gonna say that as a premise of, let's say you had like a B squad and you have the X-Men. I feel like that would be a cool way to get weird characters into the mix, and then at some point they graduate into full-fledged X-Men, so you can control who's going to be on the X-Men in a better way, but you still get the vote because you're throwing in these weird characters all at once into the B team there, and then you can swap as you like, and it feels a bit more of like a natural progression because they're like growing into the role, and you can see like how the powers mesh and shit.
I have one more name I want to throw in there.
Boy.
Santa Claus.
Nah.
It's canonically a mutant in the Marvel universe.
Interesting.
Nah.
Yep. Throw him on there. Give him like a nice one shot with the X-Men team for Christmas.
If you're listening live or otherwise, who would you want to see in this vote? Who would you vote for if the vote happens and there are all these different characters? Who would you choose? Who do you want to see? Again, I'm Surge, Armor, and Marrow. Those are the ones I want. The Surge is number one.
You know what? Marrow's a Morlock. What's up with the Morlocks? Like, where?
They addressed that. They addressed that in Marauders.
They're like Arizona or something.
No, some of them are there. Like the guy who heals people is there.
Yeah, some of them are there. Some of them chose to stay out.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
they're in like a retirement village or something.
Yeah, they have their own
Yeah, I remember
space.
that.
Yeah. So yeah, X-Men vote 2022. I'm excited to see what characters are on the list.
Is it a little soon?
Oh yeah.
Year.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, that was the last thing I wanted to address. I think this is weird as hell because there is an X-Men book coming, right? And the vote is almost assuredly based on the way comics work, 100% sure the vote is happening after the first couple 2, 3, 4 issues are already nailed down and can't change. So inevitably this character will not be a part of the initial X-Men number 1, right?
Yep.
Why do it this way?
Yeah, it seems like every 2 years might be better if this is how you're going to do it. Like
you
yearly,
get more time.
Yearly you only get, if you're lucky, 12 issues with a character.
But even then,
we didn't even get that for this this run of X-Men.
Duggan's only just released issue 6 last week. Like,
Yeah.
So
it feels very soon for that. Definitely 2-3 years makes sense.
So the next few things we talk about are going to lead into our main topic. So let's try not to belabor them too much because they'll be baked into an overall conversation we'll have. As I mentioned earlier, Jonathan Hickman went on the Explain the X-Men podcast, and over there, he actually spilled the beans about a lot of things that were planned for the X line that he wasn't able to do. So these are things that are scrapped. If he's talking about them, that means that he's 100% confident that they won't be happening.
Yeah.
and they're really, really juicy and interesting. So let's dive into that. First is, remember when we were all like wondering who was it that was going to write the Moira comic? And Hickman had teased that there was a Moira comic they wanted to do, but their first and only choice was someone they couldn't get who didn't want to do it for whatever reason. And so they didn't do the book at all. We all thought, I think at the time, there was Cy Spurrier. It was actually Al Ewing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can see that.
He didn't want to do it. And
Al Ewing or Hickman?
Al Ewing.
Okay.
Yeah, he decided that he didn't want to do it. He didn't. The way Hickman said it, I listened to the show. It was really good, very insightful. I recommend that people check it out. It's a good podcast. The way he put it, it sounded like Al Ewing couldn't really gather what he couldn't tell what the story was, and so he passed. And I think Al Ewing is more interested in doing the space stuff that he's been doing, like with Venom and Sword, and that Sword was the hook. Sword was why he ended up deciding to work with the X-Men stuff. So that's one thing. Do you guys want to share any brief ideas about that? I think that would have been a good book.
Yeah. That is really interesting.
Personally, I don't think I would have cared much for a Moira solo book. I don't know if there's much there. I think what her story had to deal with everything else. It was so heavy, heavily tied in with, the larger X-Men story as a whole. I don't know, like, what would her story have been? Her working on science experiments? Like, she couldn't even leave the place. Like, unless it was about her previous lives, and maybe there's a hook there. But yeah, if it was current Moira, I don't know.
I think it would have been a juxtaposition of her prior lives and things from those that kind of relate in some way to what she's dealing with now, or just filling in more details. I agree with you in the sense that Moira's machinations have to be kept under the vest in order for it to be interesting. And so you can't really do too much with that character at any given point. But the fact that Hickman thought it was a good idea makes me want to see what it was. That's interesting.
Well, yeah, the thing for me about it is that it probably should have been a Hickman book, because Moira was like the key to the whole thing.
Right. I completely 100% agree with you. Like the fact that he didn't think that he himself was the person to write that, it's kind of funny to me.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. Let's talk about the next one. So remember the giant size X-Men one-shots? Those were one-shots that came out last year, I believe, that were really fun and basically just featured characters who weren't in the spotlight in any of the major books doing something interesting with tremendous art. And so the first one that they did, which was my favorite, was the Jean Grey Emma Frost one with art by Russell Dauterman.
I wonder why.
Yeah. That was where we got the debut of the gloves. And I believe so. Were they
like the half gloves that were like cut off here?
Yes.
I remember the gloves.
Anyone who listens to this podcast knows about the gloves. They have to. It's just I talk about it nonstop. So in that issue, if you remember, Jean Grey and Emma are trying to help Storm. Something's wrong with Storm. They go into her mindscape to try to figure out what the problem is. Yeah. As it turns out, the original plan was that Storm was pregnant. With the baby of T'Challa, the Black Panther. And that Marvel said no. But the problem is that the book was so far in production already, which is shocking to me that they just forged ahead and like did the book, and Marvel didn't even know about it, I guess. And so Marvel said no, but Dauterman had already drawn it. It was too late. And so if you pay attention, which none of us really caught, but if you pay attention, a lot of the imagery is actually referring to Storm being pregnant, but the dialogue does not match that.
There wasn't that much dialogue in that book.
And that is why. That's a big part of why, because there was what was there to say. They couldn't address what was happening. And so they changed it and made it that she had the virus or whatever inside of her.
Yes.
And in the world, there's a birth that happens, but it's like some AI thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Her child was supposed to be in the world, and it would grow up hyper fast, and it would end up being Azari, who is actually the child of Black Panther and Storm that appears in next Avengers.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. And that Azari was going to be a major player going forward because Azari is the child of two kingdoms.
Ooh, holy shit. That would have been fucking crazy.
Yep.
So Mars and or Araco and Wakanda. Okay.
Wow.
Hickman talks about the fact that he feels like the giant-sized books are a mess, and it's because of sort of the interruptions and changes that Marvel forced on them in this instance. So very compelling look behind the curtain there. I'm fascinated by that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What podcast was this?
Explain the X-Men.
Okay.
It's quite good. I highly recommend it. Hickman also talks about books that he wanted to do that they just never got around to. And that's also interesting. Generation X. There was going to be a Generation X book.
I would have loved that.
What would that be?
You said, what would it be?
Yeah,
like Sync and who else can you throw in there? Was Boom Boom? Was Boom Boom part of that?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't know. Well, these were Hickman's words on it. I feel like the whole Generation X cast was fantastic. I mean, just fantastic. For some reason, we never got to it. It's the eternal youth problem of Marvel time, and they happen in a really small window. Whenever you compress the top and bottom together, same thing for the next generations of kids that have come along. That's somebody else's favorite mutants. Whenever Cyclops doesn't get older, you're just squishing everything down. I initially wanted to do a Generation X book. That's kind of interesting, what the initial line of books was going to be and what I had hoped it was going to be and what we were pushing for and then what it morphed into. My idea was that we should have one book for each of the generation of Academy kids. We should have a Mutants book and we should have a Generation X book.
Man, the total disregard of young X-Men. Come on.
He also talked about a Hellfire Club kids book. And then on the flip side of that, we should have a Hellfire Club. You know, Emma's kids. The thing that about working on the X-Men with all of that continuity is there's just so much to mind and there's so many directions you could go in. And then at some point, it just becomes about economical choices and people actually have to write and want to write those things. He also said Imperial Guard. And that was obvious. It's obvious that there was going to be an Imperial Guard book. It was actually directly teased in the X-Men book. When he was writing X-Men, they were clearly going down that road.
He said Vulcan?
With Vulcan.
Okay.
Remember the issue where they're actually in space dealing with the Brood?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
17.
Yeah. Yes. And what's his name? Sunspot's there and Cannonball's there. Remember, they were established as being in space.
Yep.
Vulcan was there too. So he says, I was going to do an Imperial Guard book with Bobby and Sam, and it was going to be them on the other side of all that technology stuff, and the Shi'ar and the Imperial Guard and Starjammers would have been a part of it. But it would have been a big space book seeding all of that for when we were eventually, obviously, going to crash it together. But it was going to seed all of that in a pretty intense way. So I'm bummed about that. I clearly set them up to do all that when I did those 4 issues of New Mutants. That was clearly where we were going to go with all that. I have a couple of things that I really was looking forward to doing that I'm just not going to get to do, but they're in great hands. The last book is a Mr. Sinister book.
Nice. Absolutely.
I thought he was a pants character for the longest time, and it was really terrible until Kieran unlocked it, and I used it in Secret Wars. He was a big part of that, and I never stopped building that for Kieran to come back in, even when Kieran didn't know that he was going to come back in. So I tricked him. I pulled my own little Sinister thing there, and Kieran is where he belongs, and man, that stuff that he has lined up with the Council and Sinister is pretty great.
Oh,
Was that in
that's interesting.
Kieran's? He did Secret Wars Siege, was it?
He's referring to when Kieran was actually writing the X-Men, if I remember correctly.
That was a very short period, I believe.
Huh.
If I could be wrong, but if memory serves,
He mentioned Secret Wars,
Sinister
though, right?
was the first villain of Kieran's run, and he was completely different than we had ever seen Sinister before. I remember at the time not liking that, but that's the version of Sinister that has kind of become the standard for Marvel. We didn't see that version again, really, until Hickman picked him back up in Secret Wars.
Huh.
Yeah. So
it says Gillen steers the X-Men through fear itself, schism, and regenesis.
yes.
Oh, yes. I remember
Yeah.
this time. Okay. This is near fear itself. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this interview actually took place before Inferno number 4 had released and before the announcement, I think before the announcement about Immortal X-Men had been made. He talks about Kieran's book in a vague way. So, yeah. But yeah, pretty cool stuff that we got. The last thing I wanted to do before we get into our main topic was talk about the way this all came together. I thought that was really interesting. We've had questions about that, and so Hickman kind of laid it down. It's a little bit long, but I will do my best to get through it. House and Powers, most of that came from me writing a document about what was wrong with the X-Men books and what we needed to do to fix them, and very subtly asking for the job every year until I left when I did Secret Wars. And I never thought I would get to do it because I did not believe that I was coming back to Marvel. I wasn't going to go to DC because I had a bunch of screenwriting gigs and stuff that I was doing and I had a bunch of independent books. But it just so happened that I had an itch that needed scratching and it all fell together. I was at the company. I had agreed to a new contract, and I was going to be there for a little while. The Fox deal had just been done, so we could do X stuff. But I absolutely had to go in and pitch everybody and all the editors. And before it even got to the other creators, I had to sell the entire company on doing it, and it went well. Most everybody in the room got it. The people that didn't get it had a couple of notes. We integrated those into it. They weren't bad notes. My favorite thing is going into a room, and when you get together with all the other writers and you get to pitch all of them the book, because obviously their take is incredibly different than what the editorial or executive take is going to be. When I pitched the first Fantastic Four, everybody thought I was arrogant because I was pitching what was going to happen for years. I didn't know that was arrogant. I thought I was just being enthusiastic. The same thing for when I pitched Avengers and Secret Wars. I had big plans for both of those. From what I pitched to what happened in House and Powers, very minuscule stuff had changed. People had a couple of notes about the tone, how dark or how positive it should be, and whether or not we should use some of the characters that we were using. Little things that were not a problem. Once we got into the writer's room, and it became this giant thing, even bigger than what we thought it was going to be because of House and Powers were such a huge success sales-wise. All of those books launched with incredible velocity, and then the line continued to grow, and then the world changed in the middle of it. Is referring to the pandemic. It just became a completely different thing than what I originally planned. But I think the soul of what the experiment was, which was, can we do an integrated line of comics? I feel like that was a success. That is where I want to lead into our main topic. The idea of an experiment that is an integrated line of comics is something that I don't really feel we've ever seen done to this degree that I can think of. You have your Batmans. Obviously, anytime there is a line of comics, whether it's Batman, Spider-Man, Hulk, where there's multiple books based on the same character or world of characters, generally speaking, the editors and the writers work together to make sure that the stories will be seamless and to have a general idea of where the story is going to be going down the line. But we've never had something like this where it's a writer's room where you have a head writer who's essentially dictating out years and years worth of stories, coming with a Bible, picking and choosing creators to bring into the fold to tell very specific stories that ping back and forth between the main book. That, I think, is pretty unique. And again, I'm sure everyone could point to similar things, but I don't think anything this ambitious. So in our main topic, I want to discuss whether that was a success, how we feel about things now that the whole story from Hickman's angle is over for now, and kind of like whether or not Hickman being the main person and being promoted as such, head of X, was a bad thing for the line in general. So we're going to do that in our main topic. We're going to take a small break just for ourselves to kind of regroup. We'll be back probably about less than 5 minutes. So we're going to take a small break and we will be right back. And we are ready to bring this bad boy home. We're going to be talking again about Jonathan Hickman and
his
the
beard
great...
and that incredible gray streak right down his chin. Can you guys see that on the
like
screen?
The facial hair, Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, I love that image.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
That is the head
of those.
That is the head of X.
Yeah.
That is the head of X.
It's funny, when I was Googling pictures of Jonathan Hickman, every single one I felt like he was wearing one of those crossbody satchels. Like, dude loves him a good purse, I guess.
You gotta carry your stuff.
Yeah.
Indeed. So was the great Jonathan Hickman X-Men experiment a success? So obviously, Jonathan Hickman comes on board, revolutionizes the X-Men, revolutionizes the way we think about them, and ushers them into the modern era. Marvel Comics has not significantly done anything with the X-Men at all since Astonishing X-Men ended, in my opinion. They stripped them of their powers by and large in House of M, and then they were basically in that holding pattern for quite some time. To where they never really did much with them.
I would argue the Bendis era was pretty big for the X-Men.
You would?
I think so. Yeah.
What
X-Men
changed?
Well, they brought, the X-Men into the young X-Men into the future. So they did that. Pretty much reintroduced those characters. It kind of brought Jean Grey back in a way as a major player, even though it was just young Jean Grey. Introduced a whole bunch of new X-Men as well. And it was Bendis on the book, so it put eyes on the book.
Other than
Gold
Gold
kind of
Balls,
fizzled, but
other than Gold Balls, what is relevant about that run?
Tempo is a big character. Who isn't she one of the five now? Isn't she one of the five?
So's Gold Balls, yeah.
Yeah,
big though.
I think so. I mean, I think it was Bendis right after his Avengers run, so it was like, hey, you guys should read X-Men again. I think, and they marketed it as a big thing. Did it fizzle out? Maybe fizzled out a bit.
I don't know, bro. I cut right through that. Bendis was there to add creator stature to the book, but to not shake things up. You look at the difference between Bendis's run and what Bendis did, even what Whedon did, and what Hickman is doing now. I think Bendis's run just sits in a weird space there.
I think it did something cool, and it refreshed it in a way that was acceptable to the Marvel higher ups, but I don't think it wasn't like a status quo shift.
Right. This Hickman's X-Men is a status quo seismic shift. And no matter what happens in 10 years, it's hard to imagine that some amount of this won't echo the same way that what Grant did still echoes. And so, House of Powers shook Marvel, shook comics as a whole, huge financial success, explodes into all these different books and ideas and things like that, brought in a whole host of creators to be involved in this from the art side, from the writing side. And, a lot of that stuff was interesting and felt fresh. And I think regardless of what you think about how any of it panned out, it felt like something special and unique and fresh at the time. Obviously, I think they were hit with a lot of bad luck as far as the pandemic is concerned. Jonathan Hickman speaks on that in the interview. And then ultimately, we do get some events that are a little weird, like Ten of Swords and the Hellfire Gala. And then Hickman leaves. And the reason, for those of you who aren't aware, is because the editorial, the writers, the actual team outside of Hickman and Marvel, I assume, decided that they were not ready to move forward.
God.
Whatever phase 2 of this saga was intended to be, was going to be such a shift that Marvel said, no, we're not ready. And Hickman has other work, whatever Hickman is supposed to be doing outside of the X-Men is starting. And Hickman said, well, Marvel doesn't pay me to just write X-Men. They pay me to write big stuff. And so in order to do that, I cannot do this. And I would imagine Substack probably plays a role in that too, right?
So is this confirmation by him that he's going to be doing more Marvel stuff?
He said that when they first announced this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with all of that table setting done, let's talk about it. How do you grade this whole thing? Do you think that this was a success overall?
I don't know. I mean, in terms of did I enjoy it? Yes, I think I enjoy it a lot. Yeah. And I think in terms of that, it's success. I don't think we can tell if it will be a success until after he's gone, because I think that's what determines it.
I think I have a solid answer. And I think it's one I'm fairly comfortable with based on the parameters that we've had and what we've already talked about. I don't know that I do think it was a success. What I think Hickman set out to do, and I've said this for a while now, got cut short. And I think, be that the pandemic, be that the editorial and the other creators weren't ready to move on. I think, that all cut it short. And I think a lot of things that would have been really, really good, both content wise and work wise, the behind the scenes stuff. I think it all got short shrifted. Like, I think if he'd been able to do the things he wanted to in the very specific way that he envisioned, I think it really could have worked, especially long term. And I think especially with books like Marauders, which had its own thing going on, but it was never really concurrent with anything, and it was always thrown completely off kilter when anything happened. I think eventually that stuff would have had to have circled back around, and it would have become relevant, either in its own right or to match the story. So I don't know. I can't say that I think it was a cool step forward, and it was a cool experiment. And I think, in the future, there are things a lot of creators and, editorial and all that, a lot of things they could learn from it. I don't know that I necessarily would call it a success.
How about you, Marco?
I think the biggest question, similar to Tyler, is the longevity of it. What is the long tail for the creators? I think what Hickman was successful in doing was creating a cohesive sandbox. So you can have a Marauders book that can do its own thing and integrate back. I think the execution is another question there. But you have X-Men Red coming out. You have Immortal X-Men. You have a lot. We have X-Men going on currently, and I think all that stuff to allow people to play was successful, and we were engaged and brought into the fold by Hickman. And for me, I would have liked to have seen how it would have continued. I agree that had we not stayed in this era of X-Men, I think the cohesion would have been much more, it would have been felt much more, it would have been that much more successful because it is a large storyline. But the I guess the downfall of it has been the fact that Marvel wants to continue to publish things for as long as they can rather than tell this cohesive story. And the comparison I make in my mind is manga, where you can do something like this where a creator has total control of this ever expanding universe that they have, but there's always that end goal in sight and they're always working to that end goal, and they're willing to make the sacrifice of extending or serializing because it's all part of that story. And to be fair, there hasn't been anything done in the past where you take these multiple books and you create this kind of universe. I think that is absolutely unique and, again, absolutely a success. But for me, what would have been the real linchpin there would have been seeing it to fruition. And that's the part where I don't think, yes, the line is integrated and yes, there's a lot to play there, but I would have wanted to have seen a creative concept go the distance.
I don't think that's possible. Like the comparison between, manga and, I guess superhero American comics is good because I think it just shows that it's not possible in American comics. That singular vision that kind of has an end goal in sight and can, make its way completely there and get to that end goal isn't possible. It's comics are too corporatized and superheroes. Yeah. Specifically Marvel, DC would fit into this too. And it's just creators aren't on books that long, and they have to have tie-ins. They have to tie into events. They have to have spin-off series. The idea of a singular creator doesn't exist in superhero books. Should it? Could it? I don't know. I don't know if we can even, compare it to manga in that way. Because I just don't think it's possible. I think the closest we have is Black Hammer from Jeff Lemire, but again, it's not a big 2 book. So I think, well, one thing I wanted to bring up is I think whether or not this is a success really depends on if it can, these themes and ideas can grow outside of the comics. I think if we see Krakoa show up in, the X-Men MCU movie, or we see it show up as the new season of the animated series, I think that'll kind of tell whether or not this was a success in terms of its longevity and its strength as a story. I think it definitely has potential to. The idea of Krakoa not existing now doesn't compute in my head. So in terms of a status quo shift, I think Hickman definitely succeeded and kind of wrote this linchpin story in the X-Men mythos. But yeah, I don't think we can tell yet if it's truly a success.
I think that's a pretty huge expectation to saddle it with, that it has to become a movie or something big like that in order to be a success. I mean, we're talking comics, and I think if you're evaluating it from that angle, was this a successful endeavor? It's tough.
We have to define what success is then at that point.
Well, like I said, success is from the standpoint of, did it revolutionize the X-Men? Did it bring the X-Men back into the forefront in a way where we care about them? Did it tell interesting and compelling stories? Did it set up a situation that can exist beyond Hickman within the books? Or is Hickman the only reason why his actual writing, the only reason why this succeeded? Because obviously, there are a lot of other creators that aren't Jonathan that are involved in this that have had varying degrees of involvement in the overall story that we either liked or didn't like, right? And we don't know all of those things. We don't know how much influence someone like Vita Ayala, for example, had over Ten of Swords. We kind of do, but we don't know the extent. So stuff like that. I think that while answering this is difficult, and we will absolutely have to do this again whenever the whole thing is over, which who knows when that'll be. I think that it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
Yeah.
But I would ultimately, I think I'm forced to say that it was not a success. Here's the reason.
Well, I think it's funny because you just listed off all those things that defines it. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I would say yes to that. I would say yes to that.
It did do all of those things, but I think it did them whenever Jonathan Hickman was writing and not whenever anyone else was. Yep. I really believe that.
Yep.
And I hate to say that because this is not, I have to explain it because I'm really, really not trying to denigrate those creators. I think everybody did their best. I think everybody brought their A game, and it's clear that they were all excited. My problem is that it's really hard to take somebody else's concept and vision and then live that out, play that out, right? So Hickman, from my understanding, is the person who came up with the ideas for, you know, these different books and where the characters would be, what they could and couldn't do, and stuff like that. And I'm sure there was a lot of leeway as far as what creators could bring to the table, but Hickman set the table. So whenever you read Marauders, right, and every time it starts to get sort of interesting and it feels like Jerry Duggan is going somewhere, then it's like, hey, by the way, Ten of Swords got to stop this to do that. That sucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've always complained about that as far as events go. I don't think I've ever felt it more than I did here because of how tethered these books are to each other. They don't exist without each other. More importantly than that, they don't exist without Hickman. He is the conductor, and they have to march to the beat of his drum. So that, for me, was a big problem. They didn't bring on creators. This is probably the right thing to do, but they didn't bring on creators who tell stories the way Hickman does. So tonally, they're all completely different. They don't feel the same, and they probably should.
I disagree on that.
That's fine, but this is my time.
Okay.
They probably should. I like the idea that when you switch books, you get a similar vibe. We always praise the line for looking the same. You know, the books that look like what Pepe Larraz laid out work the best for me. And if the books were written like Hickman books by people who can do that style, or maybe not even necessarily do the style, but had the gravity, that would have been better. None of the books other than whatever Hickman was writing felt like they mattered. So if you're a fan and you're like, you know what, I don't have all this type of money, I'm just going to read whatever Hickman writes. Maybe you would say, I'll skip out on Spider-Man because Marauders really feels like it matters. And it's written so well, and it feels like X-Men. But the books didn't feel like that. And then when you get into the events, for me, Ten of Swords, no good. Wash. Super hyped, total wash.
Yep.
Ten of Swords did not feel like a Hickman thing, to be honest.
It didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't. It felt like a committee thing.
Yeah. I think the what you're saying is that the risk you get there is when you start homogenizing the line, which is also shown to not do comic book lines well. Like, think of like how Bendis's, Avengers petered off. Yeah, the writing kind of petered off, but also because all the Avengers books were Bendis-y, and
I don't know, man. Go ahead, but I'm going to challenge that.
But like, I don't think you should have a line of comics, specifically X-Men, that blew up in terms of its scale in the recent years, all sound the same, or all feel the same.
It worked during his Avengers run.
Well, it's because only he was doing that. He was. What were the books at that point? Avengers, New Avengers.
He wasn't the only writer. They had Avengers World or Avengers Forever. Not Avengers Forever. I think it was called Avengers World.
It was Avengers World, yeah, which he was still credited on for plotting, I believe.
Yeah,
but he didn't write it.
Which is what this is, or what it should be.
I think what we ran into is a smaller scale version of the problems you get into with editorial on a major line. Like it's, you know, whether it was, remember Secret Invasion, you know, you would see, oh, there's this main Secret Invasion book that's fun and it's by Bendis and it's going on, but now all the other books have to tie you into it. And do I want a Ghost Rider book that deals with Skrulls? Maybe not. But we're seeing that on a smaller scale with, Hickman has this vision, and now someone like Leah Thompson has to then
Leah Thompson.
That's Howard the Duck. Damn it, that's a typical Tyler move there.
Yep.
But whether or not like a writer like Vita or something would have to fit into a Hickman mold, which their writing obviously doesn't. And maybe this is the choice of they chose creators with varying voices and writing styles, which I think is the right thing to do, and then tried to fit him into a mold that didn't fit into at all. I don't know. I don't think you should homogenize a line like this. Like if every X-Men book was a heady Hickman story, I don't know if I would have read as many X-Men books as I have.
But
I have different flavors now.
Wouldn't it have been better to have like less books that are, you know, more aligned, even just tonally, that, you know, don't have a jarring drop every 3 issues because something happens, you know, or even books that are connected but can do their own thing and react to things that happen in a real way, you know. So in Marauders, Xavier dies, but Kate and the Marauders are out doing their thing. Oh shit! When were we going to find out about that?
I think that was beneficial. Like I've read every X-Men book that's come out since. Like you have gems like fucking Hellions, which is fantastic. It never addresses any of the stuff. The only stuff it addresses is that Krakoa exists. There's a Quiet Council. Have fun. And I like that because it's like, hey, I have this giant sandbox of Krakoa that I just introduced. And yeah, there are some, you know, machinations going around that, you know, exist throughout Krakoa. But just have fun in that world. You know, I think you keep bringing back Marauders, which I think is probably one of the ones that was hampered the most by the main X-Men line. But you have stuff like Excalibur, which kind of tied into Ten and Swords more than anything, but that's kind of been doing its own thing, even outside of Krakoa. Like Wolverine has been romping around.
That's not true. Excalibur has not been doing its own thing. Excalibur is literally a perfect example of how this is supposed to work.
Excalibur has been in the other world this entire time for the past year.
But when the book started, it absolutely was not.
Sure, and then Ten of Swords happened, and then it kind of got into its own thing.
But that's what I'm saying, though. So when the line first launched, every book had a clear directive as far as what it was supposed to be. The books that didn't live up to that is almost every single one. And that's the problem that I'm addressing. Excalibur was doing crazy shit that directly impacted the future of the X-Men line. It felt like it mattered. If you read Marauders, tell me what happened in Marauders that mattered. Why would I buy it? If it doesn't matter and it's not by Hickman and it feels inconsistent with what else is happening and it always gets stifled by an event, why would I buy this?
I think the difference between you and I is what does matter mean? Like I'm not a stickler for stuff like that. Maybe that's just me.
That's
like,
fair.
What matters is what happens in the book itself. You know, whether or not it ties into, you know, their overarching theme doesn't really matter to me because I want to read what happens in this book with these characters. I mean, maybe that's the difference between us, but
that's been the draw for something like Wolverine for me, where it exists outside of everything that's been going on in Krakoa, and I think Percy has a really good voice there, and it exists as its own book. When it needs to be, it jumps into the rest of the X-Men stuff, and that's pretty infrequently. But I think that's an example of a book doing it well, where, to Tyler's point about Hellions, I haven't read it, but it sounds something very similar where you can exist outside of the world and still have an engaging book. But I think what hampered the line across the board was the fact that we all jumped into, and the books that we ended up reading for something like X of Swords or Ten of Swords led into, with all these various books, felt disjointed because they were interrupting other storylines. And that feels like something that is very typical of superhero comics.
Yeah.
But I think if this was a writer's room and you did have the writers that had the Hickman gravitas, you could cohesively connect those pieces a bit better and then, pass off the book to let them do their own thing. I think there's a variation there where it works. Because if we're going to pick a writer that is currently in the mix, I feel like Benjamin Percy has the kind of gravity to write another kind of series in a similar, more, not necessarily heady tone, but a serious tone that could benefit from, it can benefit as an extension of Hickman. If you had brought in Gillen a bit earlier, Ewing, and then pass off the baton to these other creators so that way they could tell their stories during this extended period. For me, it was the lead up after Ten of Swords that kind of burned a lot of these books for me, because I was picking up at least maybe 4 or 5 of the lines, and I dropped them after the mess that was Ten of Swords, because they felt like we were jumping around. It felt like nobody really knew how we were leading into the next thing outside of where we're collecting the sword. And the execution there was frankly messy. We had 3 issues where we were just at a dinner or something. There was just a lot there that I think could have been condensed had we had writers that matched Hickman's tone.
Well, so again, I really want to steer this conversation away from denigrating the writers necessarily. It's because okay, fine. Everyone cares about various X-Men, right? There's a million X-Men and you want to be able to see them. And yeah, it's fine. Hellions can exist and do what it wants to do. And I'm sure it's funny and engaging and all that stuff. That's fine. But when you're talking about, especially I think with the first wave of books, and even if you look at Destiny of X, why do we need 11 X-Men comic books? We don't. It's too many, and it's inevitable that some of them are going to fall through the cracks. Some of them won't be good. Some of them aren't going to justify themselves by living out their premise. This is a problem. And I'm not even the only one saying this. This is a consistent complaint that I've seen about this era of X-Men, where it just feels disjointed. For me, what I would have been happy with, and what it would take for me to give this a successful grade, is if you culled everything from the start and said there are only 4 or 5 books, and Hickman is writing 2 of them, and the events are written by Hickman. If you had the line the way it is now, but the events were done by Hickman and that's it, I'd probably feel a lot better about it. But when you are trading issues and one issue is written by this one and their style is completely different from Hickman's, it just feels weird. And that's why I'm giving it this grade, on top of the fact that we know for a fact that so many of the things that Hickman wanted to do just didn't happen.
I think his vision was a little too big, honestly, especially when he talks about all the 4 other series that he wanted to write.
He got away with it the other 2 times.
Well, simultaneously, we haven't seen him do that.
I think that Hickman got his way on almost everything when it comes to House and Powers. But as soon as it became a super profitable thing, and he chose, I would imagine, to bring on all these different creators, tell all these different stories, to fill out the line, that's where it became a problem. And that is going to take us into the final aspect of this conversation, which is the backlash that has come out. It's always kind of existed, but it's more fervent now that Hickman is over with the X-Men, where people are upset that people are upset about Hickman leaving, and that we have sort of anointed Hickman as this, auteur creator who can do no wrong, and that everybody else is responsible for whatever's wrong with the line, ignoring the fact that it was always a collaborative effort from the word go post House and Powers. I have a tweet actually that I want to read that kind of encapsulates what I'm talking about. This is actually from Adam Reck, Arthur Stacy, who is on the Battle of the Atom podcast from Comics XF. He said, "Enough with the narrative that Hickman was somehow diverted or stopped from telling his magnum opus with X-Men. From the jump, it was a collaborative process that has shifted and changed with the group. This was never a solo operation. Stop treating him like an auteur. No one gets to walk in and play with this kind of IP inside a bubble. Everything gets checked and rechecked up a chain of command, and it's a line of books. It isn't one creator-owned storyline or a single author doing a run for 50 issues. Treating Jonathan Hickman as the sole contributor to the Krakoan era discredits the dozens of artists and writers who worked to build this new world for readers. To act as though he was somehow sidelined when he was actively show running a writer's room is a bizarre take."
Yep, I feel like that's fair. Like I think the fact that we on this podcast are giving Hickman the credit, I think, comes more so from the fact that his books and it was his vision, and so they were the most cohesive. But that's not to say that those other creators are lesser. And if anything, for me, what's given me a bit more hope in the post Hickman era is going to be the fact that Gillen's introduced, because I think he has similar stylings, but is able to take control of characters in his own way. And I don't know who's going to be the big brains guy and the big storytelling piece there, or if we're going to kind of just scatter into different books. But X-Men Red, again, another book that I'm looking forward to now post Hickman, because of that very reason, that there are capable creators outside of him who are going to be able to have been handed the baton and are going to be able to tell the stories that they want to in the ways that they want to, and all capable creators. So I don't think that I feel like if there's any backlash against people being upset, it's just because they're seeing a creator that they like go away. But we're still going to get comics. We're still going to get quality storytelling because there are still quality writers and artists on these books.
I mean, comics fans being upset is just comics, and then comics fans being upset at other comics fans for being upset at comics is also comics. And like, I don't know, like if you don't think Hickman is going to pick up these themes in other books and you haven't been reading Hickman throughout his Marvel run, like even if he writes Spider-Man, one of these things will be picked on. Like his stuff in Secret Wars ties into his Avengers stuff, ties into his X-Men stuff. Like it's all been a part of it.
Spider-Man? You mean that's that character who notoriously has a history with clones?
Oh yeah. and then like even like his Shield stuff or Secret Avengers, like it has all tied into something. He's got some Pepe Sylvia board in his room next to his collection of satchels that he's been pulling these threads and needles around all these books. You'll be okay, Hickman fans. I think in my opinion, like I think the fact that he was able to create the new status quo is a success in terms of the storytelling. Is it a success in terms of the idea of a writer's room style form of editorial for a particular line in major two books? I think that's up for a debate. Especially since it doesn't look like we're going to be having a showrunner going forward for the X-Men line, unless, Gillen kind of fills that role, but he's notoriously plays things close to the chest. So I don't know. Even if he is, we'll ever know it until after the fact. I don't think that was really a success in terms of it.
I think the tweet you read, Sean, is a valid take. I do. And I certainly don't, want to disrespect the other creators who contributed to this new era, but Hickman's Hickman set the table that I was interested in. He made the stuff that I wanted to read, and nobody else was really able to follow up on that for whatever reason, whether, each creator had their own, pull and their own, thing that made their book interesting to whatever degree. But like, I wouldn't be reading the X-Men if it weren't for the Hickman stuff. And now he's gone. How, not that he should be celebrated as an auteur or whatever, but I'm bummed that he's leaving. I don't know.
I think it's weird that we have to accept this delusion that we didn't all come here for Hickman. Like, House and Powers sold like crazy.
Yeah.
X-Men sold like crazy. And Hickman wrote that. None of this would be happening if it wasn't for Hickman. Nobody else had these ideas. Hickman didn't use, there was no writer's room for House and Powers. He explained how he had to go in and pitch the whole thing to every single person who worked at Marvel. So why would we say that this has been a collaborative process from the word go? That's literally not true. It's just not true. It's a fact. So I can't accept that. I'm not going to accept something that's not a fact. It's a fact that Hickman created all of this. Now, after House and Powers, sure, they brought on tons of talented people and they contributed. But guess what? Where has the criticism come from? Two camps. One who doesn't like what Hickman started at all, because they feel like the X-Men should be less of a serious story, less like politically driven, whatever the case may be. They're not into it from the word go.
Less politically driven.
Believe me, I don't get it. But then the other side of that are people who say, I like everything that Hickman does. I don't want to read anything else. We have that in our Discord. There are a lot of people that feel like that. I myself love the X-Men. I am such a huge fan of the X-Men. I was buying literally every single book they put out from this line. I stopped because I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't like it. I don't have to like it. And that's the thing. It feels as though if you don't like it, you're wrong. I'm not wrong. I like what Jonathan Hickman did. That's it. And I like what
I want to buy Jonathan Hickman books.
I like what Benjamin Percy did.
Yeah.
I like what Tini Howard did. That's it. End of story. And I can credit those people and not talk about the stuff that I thought wasn't very good.
Can I ask a question? When did you fall off on stuff? Was it Ten of Swords?
I think Ten of Swords was probably the big breaking point for me. Yeah. Because that's when I stopped reading a lot of the stuff. Because I couldn't get through those issues where they were just walking around fighting swords. It was dumb as hell. And to me, the fact that we're even talking about something like that tells me that something was wrong. Something went wrong. And I would much rather have read Jonathan Hickman's X-Men done in the exact same style of his Avengers, from Avengers to Secret Wars. That's what I would have preferred. And if people have a problem with that, then you have a problem with my opinion that's different than yours. You need to get a grip. Everybody's entitled to feel how they feel.
Yeah. I think, that Avengers stuff was just a much smaller line. I don't even think you can even really consider it a line at that point. It was Hickman's Avengers story. So like trying to take that and then make it, I guess, bigger in a way with the line, it doesn't seem like it was successful.
So, okay, and this is the last major point I'm going to make. I feel like democracy clearly just doesn't work. We just learned that. But if you said to me, hey, everything Jonathan Hickman writes is like the main track, right? And the events will be written by him and all of that stuff. And everybody else gets to tell the stories that they feel like telling within the sandbox that Hickman created, but don't really expect these books to be like seismic in any way and pick and choose based on the characters you like and the creators you enjoy. But Hickman is the main guy, right? I'm cool with that. Like how in Batman, Scott Snyder was the showrunner equivalent. And every event was a Snyder event, but everybody else got to do cool things and their books could tie in. That's what I would have preferred over this. I think this was a failure because there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and I don't think that works. I don't. If you have a showrunner, that's the person. And that's not exactly what happened here. And whenever it was that, it didn't work for the other books. I think it was almost too collaborative.
So you have like an issue with, I guess, broken marketing promises in a way.
Big time. That's one of my biggest complaints. I say it all the time. These books didn't justify themselves by delivering on what they said they were going to be.
Okay.
Sean, you're just mad that Hickman's leaving. Your opinion is invalid. I don't give a shit. You're wrong.
I am mad that he's leaving, for sure. No doubt about it. I'm upset. It sucks. Hickman is in my top 5, easily top 3, maybe.
During the break, why don't you talk about what you're talking about during the break and how all these diverse voices that were writing in the other X-Men books? You were like, no, man, I want just this white dude Hickman.
Dude, I have plot armor for that one, bro. Anyone else want to have a last thought before we close the show out?
I am interested to see where it goes.
Yeah.
I think I wonder, like you said, like once this is quote unquote done, if it ever really is done, where it lands and if our opinions change on it.
I wonder if, the next era will sort of be, the getting the X-Men and the editorial and the writers to the point, where they sort of need either the jump or the reset. And maybe we do see Hickman again. Maybe we do get the next part.
Yeah.
That might be a while, and that might be a pipe dream.
Might be on like a weird Darkhawk book when there's a Darkhawk movie announced or something like that. Like,
I think Hickman has a contract that has an endpoint that's not that far away. And I think that he probably doesn't want to continue to do big 2 books after that. I know there was a lot of talk about him going to DC in 2018. I think Bendis
was gunning for it from what I remember.
But Hickman said, I quoted him earlier saying he was not going to DC. And so I think he'll probably just go back to what he was doing before, which was Hollywood stuff and independent comics, Substack, yada, yada, yada. And so for him, I think this will probably just end up being a thing that was really cool that he got to do, but that he didn't get to fully live out. It sounds like it was a dream of his to write the X-Men. And I'm bummed because at the end of the day, I will always want to see what a creator had to say. Always. Nothing will ever convince me that that's not right. So even in the case of Zack Snyder, right, where the Justice League movie was trash, Batman vs. Superman is mid, and Man of Steel is mid, I still wanted to see what he would have done with Justice League because he didn't get to tell his story. And to me, that's the only thing that matters. And so because Hickman didn't get to tell his story, I will always be disappointed. This will be one of the biggest disappointments ever in comics for me personally. And I'm very bummed. But it's not all bad. I'm hopeful for the future. You guys said it already. Great, talented people still there, have always been there. And I can't wait to see what they have to do. But they have a lot less rope.
Another one for the Hicksville Library.
I want to see more of these comic book shoot interviews that Hickman had, like with other creators. Like I want to see what Brubaker has to say about his run in the big 2.
Yeah.
Man, Sean, you would be the biggest manga fan.
No, I don't think I would.
Auteur singular visions.
I think I would be. I think I would be if creators, American comics creators could make superhero comics in that vein. Sure. Which, by the way, can we acknowledge, like, it's not true that doesn't happen in comics? It definitely does. Like, what was Immortal Hulk?
In Big 2?
In Big 2 comics, what was Immortal Hulk? What is Daredevil every time it gets written?
But it's also one book. So, like, yeah, I think.
But the person said that doesn't happen in comics, and that's not true. That's just not a fact. But this is obviously a big topic. Let us know your thoughts about it. We have loved talking about the X-Men from the announcement of Hickman joining until now, and we will continue to do that. This is almost borderline an X-Men podcast. So
this episode was.
Share your thoughts with us, and we've done quite a few like this. Yeah. Share your thoughts with us about everything we talked about in the main topic. Even if you disagree with me, you agree with Tyler, agree with, we all had sort of small differences in our thoughts. And talk to us about anything we talked about today. If you watched live, how'd you feel about the live show? If you didn't, do you wish you had? Will you tune in? Obviously, we do the show very early. We started at 10 a.m. So that might be a little early for you guys. But
it's 6.
If you can make it, we'd love to have you. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you guys tune into Pals Polls every Wednesday at 6 p.m. where we are reviewing that week's comics and taking your questions, doing fun stuff. We've got Comics Tag. Marco has to read issues 3 and 4 or 2 and 3, whatever it is, of Joker. 3 and 4 of Joker. And then he's going to tag one of us with his book that he wants us to read.
I bet you it's Swamp Thing.
Big shock.
You guys have been reading it. Don't worry. You'll see what it is.
I'm excited.
Converted us there.
Also, Saga Book Club at the end of the month. Send in your questions for us for the Saga Book Club at thecomicspals@gmail.com, on YouTube at youtube.com/thecomicspals, or wherever else you can get us. Join our Discord for that as well. Make sure you subscribe to our channel over on YouTube for free so that you can be made aware of when we drop new content. Hit the notification bell for that too. Let's get into the plugs, our plugs. Kale.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Comics Pals. You can find me at Toto Into on Twitter and Instagram. That's TOTOINTOW. You can find my work at kaleward.com. That's CALEWARD.com.
All right, Marco.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mr. Marco Animoto, usually talking about anime and manga and whatever Swamp Thing related comic I'm reading.
Tyler.
You can follow me at the Tyler Olson on Instagram and Twitter, where I can talk about every Man-Thing comic ever created. Yeah, hold on, I have a Man-Thing. Where's
And Howard the Duck. He's a notorious Howard the Duck fan.
What does Tyler have?
I have this Man-Thing action figure. How cool is that? Isn't that neat?
That's an elephant.
It's cool. It's an elephant? No, it's Man-Thing.
That's an elephant.
I don't know what you guys have in England town, but that's not what elephants look like.
Town. As for me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram only at Sean Soapbox. I am still thinking about The Matrix, guys. I love that movie. It was brilliant.
I fell asleep.
You're bad.
Yeah.
A bad person.
And also, I'm thinking about X-Men, Jonathan Hickman. I gotta pick up the Infernal hardcover. Can't wait for that. And I'm gonna read the whole thing again, man. I can't wait. Maybe we'll do content around the totality of it whenever that's all said and done. With that, we're the Comics Pals signing off. We will see you next week. Take care, guys.
See you next week.